Hey everyone. Yeah, I thought I'd do this right now while it's on my mind. Um, you know, I was recently reading an article off of CagesideSeats.com, and it was a good article, very interesting. And it basically talked about the so-called TNA invasion of NXT, basically explaining how almost in the past year or so we've gotten Samoa Joe, Austin Aries, and an appearance by Bobby Roode at TakeOver, and spoilers in case you don't know, well, WWE's already spoiled it, Eric Young as well, all showing up or rearing their heads and glancing over and basically, like I said, making appearances, debuts, and all that with NXT. Now, what's interesting about this is their roles, I should say, are going to be that of player coaches. In other words, they're going to be in-ring performers, they're going to be in-ring competitors, but they're also going to help teach the younger talent how it's done. They're going to teach the younger talent how the business works. And honestly, I think these are great roles for them to be in. Because not only do they still get to compete in the ring and be the very best, but they are actually helping to groom the future of the business. Now, what the person that did this article pointed out was there is a lot of mixed emotions about all these TNA alumni showing up in NXT, all these TNA originals. As a matter of fact, someone said that as of last night or so, or 2 nights ago, TNA on Twitter, well, not TNA, but NXT on Twitter was being jokingly hashtagged as NXTNA. Yeah, they had jokingly hashtagged NXT because I guess the debut of Eric Young is what really drove this home. They hashtagged NXT as NXTNA, basically saying, in a sense, through this hashtag, that NXT is becoming TNA. And, one of the things they pointed out was, in a sense, NXT is kind of removing its, well, not removing itself, but it's kind of moving away from its original, um, idea. And that is to build the future of the business in that company. True, bring somebody in, maybe give them a new name and all that, but they're still the same person. But you're using NXT to groom them for the future on the main roster, or at least for the main roster's future. You're doing that to groom them for the future of the WWE. But now, all of a sudden, according to what I read here, you're relying on bringing on all these established TNA Impact Wrestling veterans or alumni onto your roster for NXT, and some of them only have maybe some of them probably only have maybe uh, realistically and statistically several years left in that ring. I mean, you take a look at their ages, 36, 37, what have you, and statistically and reality-wise, realistically and statistically, from statistics, easy for me to say, statistically, um, when when you in the eyes of the NXT faithful, When you bring these guys in, these alumni in from from TNA to be part of NXT, even as player coaches, there's a lot of fans are not going to be too happy about it because of the fact that yes, it's great to see guys like Bobby Roode, Eric Young, Austin Aries, Samoa Joe finally in a WWE ring, but where they belong in the eyes of a lot of fans. But basically, all you're doing is taking that character that we had just seen they had just seen recently on TNA television, and you're just bringing that same character, that same person, that same persona over. You're just carrying it over. You're just basically carrying and bringing over that baggage that they created in TNA. You're bringing that over to the WWE. You're bringing that over to your NXT brand. And not a lot of fans are happy about that because to them, NXT is supposed to be about the future. Now, one thing that the person that wrote the article said is we shouldn't really be, basically he said towards the end of the article, we shouldn't really be worried. Because even if Bobby Roode and Eric Young and Austin Aries get shots at the NXT championship down the line and maybe have a run with that championship for at least a few months, maybe even a week for that matter, it shouldn't really be bothersome to us. It shouldn't really be a problem because it's not going to have any ill effect whatsoever. Because basically, in a sense, you're also creating dream matchups. True, we've seen Eric Young against Samoa Joe. We've seen Austin Aries against Joe. We've seen Roode against Joe. We've seen these as recently as of last year, when Joe ended his run in TNA. We saw it there. But when they talk dream matchups, they talk about dream matchups that they want to see in a WWE ring. Like they want to see Joe against Styles someday on the main roster, because that way they could say, hey, yes, it happened in Japan. Yes, it happened in Ring of Honor. Yes, it happened in TNA, but now it's happening where it matters the most, where it's definitely going to get the most attention. It's going to get the most eyes on it. It's happened in the WWE. That's why they talk about, oh, it's a dream matchup, because it's a dream matchup that will get more eyes on it and more notoriety than it's ever done anywhere else. And I think that's what fans need to understand. It's not the fact that, WWE's oversaturating themselves with these TNA alumni, either in NXT or if some like Styles are lucky enough on the main roster. They're not, they're oversaturating themselves with talent from a company that is meaningless, that's a joke. They're not oversaturating themselves. They're basically helping to rebuild themselves. Think of it. Think of this. Since NXT debuted, was rebranded as it is by Triple H, and debuted basically since NXT was rebooted and rebranded as it is today, back in 2011, 2012 by Triple H, and FCW became part of that. A lot of that talent has been lost lately over the past, what has it been, four years? Seth Rollins, main roster, successful. Roman Reigns, main roster, successful. Dean Ambrose, same thing. Cesaro, same thing. All these names, if you catch my drift. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn recently. Well, not really recently, but you get the idea. And lately, Enzo and Cass, the Vaudevillains. Kalisto of the Lucha Dragons. Becky, Sasha Banks, Charlotte. All these talents are being taken away from the main roster. taken away from the NXT roster and brought in to help replenish and help rebuild the main roster due to the fact that, yes, you have injuries to some of your main stars, but you're also, in a sense, you're trying to rebuild your roster for the new generation of fans that are saying, hey, you're not building new stars, and yet you want to prove it to them, and that's why you're basically ransacking your own developmental in-house competitor of its roster. This is why a lot of people, when they look at Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin, and they still say they're a little green, they're not ready yet, is because WWE is trying to say, hey, look, we're giving you these new stars. We're going to give them to you, like you're asking, And they're basically, like I said, also doing it because they're trying to replenish the main roster, the depletion that the main roster is going through. They're basically, like NXT itself, is going through a transitional rebuilding process. And I think that's what a lot of fans don't understand. And when it comes to the fact that when you have guys like Eric Young, Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, and then last year Samoa Joe, when you have these kind of guys free on the market, and you don't want to take a chance that someone like New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor perhaps, maybe even Impact Wrestling once more, has a chance to regain them, re-sign them, or sign them for the first time and make them into the major stars that a lot of people feel WWE would never do. Of course you're going to want to, of course if you're Triple H and you're NXT, of course you're going to want to scoop those guys up. You're going to want to bring them in because, one, maybe you've had your eye on them and you've been wanting them to come in because maybe you feel from a developmental in-house competitor standpoint, they can help out that younger talent by not only putting over that younger talent, but also finally getting the opportunity they deserve, they've worked hard for, to showcase the entire world that, hey, what you've heard about us and all these other promotions, it's true, and there's even more to that. So for people to come out and jokingly call NXT hashtag NXTNA, that's fine. You can joke about it because it does feel like it's a TNA invasion. But unless they go with a storyline saying, hey, TNA's invading, and they freaking find a way to sign Dixie Carter, it's not a TNA invasion. What it is a primary example of rebuilding and having people there that, yes, they've competed elsewhere around the world. Yes, they've won championships and been world champions elsewhere around the world. But now they're here to not only, have the opportunity that they've been wanting for a long time, but they're also here to help provide for the future, help teach the future, coach the future of the business on how things are done the right way. And when you look at this, NXT is building for the future. NXT in itself has opened the doors for WWE to do things they never would have done before. I mean, think about it this way. You take a look at the Sting DVD, the Dudley Boy DVD, and maybe even way before this, the Jeff Hardy DVD, which I think was the last time we ever heard TNA get mentioned, was in that Hardy Boys DVD. And that was like years before Sting and the Dudleys came on board. And we never heard of TNA since then. But guess what? You've been hearing about it a lot more. You've been hearing in these anthologies, and it's even been hinted at, even last year at the WrestleMania Today shows that they did throughout the week leading up to WrestleMania 31. You've heard it on Legends with JBL when he talked to Brian James, the Road Dogg. He's probably going to bring it up with Booker T in his interview with him. The point is, ever since NXT has come around, it's opened the doors for other promotions that WWE would probably never even acknowledge existed to acknowledge their existence. I mean, you have them acknowledging, like I said, through these documentaries, Bubba Ray's run in TNA and being the world champion there. You have them mentioning Sting's run in TNA and being the world champion there. You have JBL mentioning TNA to Brian James. It's like NXT, in my opinion, opened the door for that to happen. And now you're getting Progress Wrestling. I think that's what it's called. Progress Wrestling, or Progress Wrestling out of the UK, being featured on WWE's YouTube page because it's all part of this Global Cruiserweight Series that's coming out in July. So you have companies like that being acknowledged now and even showcased on WWE's YouTube page. And because of that, now you've got rumors and reports going around that Progress Wrestling, maybe even Ring of Honor, and several others could be considered as legit programming in the future for WWE Network. And that never, in my opinion, would have happened if NXT didn't become what it is today. And NXT didn't start bringing in guys like Samoa Joe, like Shinsuke Nakamura, Eric Young, very soon Bobby Roode, Austin Aries. They wouldn't have done that if NXT hadn't kicked that door down. They wouldn't have done that. And you people knowing this, watching this video, know that's true. And for some of you that are, as they put it in this article, freaked out by this and worried about this, you shouldn't be worried. Because it's not a bad thing. Sooner or later, it might take a little longer than usual. Sooner or later, Joe, Young, and Roode, and Aries, after a while, maybe even before this year's out, they're all going to end up on the main roster of WWE if they sign contracts, which obviously they have and will. They're going to end up on the roster of WWE very, very soon. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gonzalo, I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, I think have signed contracts. And they're very well known, and it won't be long before they probably end up on the main roster as a tag team. It'll probably be after the Global Cruiserweight Series. The point is, none of this would happen if NXT didn't become what it is today and kick down that damn door. It wouldn't be. None of this would happen. And this is why the question of NXT becoming TNA of the mid-2010s or NXT becoming NXTNA is not true. It's basically opening the door for all these other men and women that have made names for themselves around the world and other promotions to not only get a chance to shine, but also have that promotion acknowledged possibly for what they help contribute to that star or what that star contribute to that promotion. I mean, you do not think that WWE isn't going to use the Global Cruiserweight Series to eye potentially new signees like Zack Sabre Jr.? You don't think that? Of course they will. Of course they will. And they're going to continue doing that. And there's going to be more things than just the Global Cruiserweight Series. You're going to have other stuff, other specials and tournaments happening that are going to help acknowledge other promotions, and it's all because NXT busted that door open. That is why you have guys like Eric Young, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Austin Aries, and several others probably coming in the future wanting to be part of WWE's NXT because they know at least WWE is going to have the fortitude now to acknowledge that they were world champion, and people pretty much are going to know, oh, they were world champion probably in TNA, which, they'll look online and see where they were world champion and go like, oh, I've watched TNA. I might have remembered them being champion there. And yeah, will it get more attention on TNA? Absolutely. But guess what? It's because WWE through NXT kicked that door open to make it happen. Come on. You don't think WWE doesn't want that competition to help them be better? Of course they do. That's why they're acknowledging this. That's why they're allowing this to happen. So for some of you to say that NXT becoming NXTA or NXTNA, fine, go ahead and joke about that. Say it all you want, but it's not true. And even if it is, maybe WWE is trying to show TNA because they know they're watching. Hey, this is how it's done. I'm just saying. The point is, folks, TNA, NXT is not becoming TNA. It's basically opened the door for guys that will be recognized as being former world champions where they were, and mostly a lot of fans, believe it or not, especially the hardcore ones, will know exactly where they were world champion at. NXT has kicked that door open to allow it to happen. So, is NXT becoming TNA or becoming TNA in general? No. It's opening the door for TNA to be recognized and acknowledged, maybe not by word unless it's in a documentary, but at least or unless it's on the WWE.com website, but at least they're being acknowledged because TNA is bringing these guys in. Ring of Honor is being acknowledged because of the guys being brought in. And now you got, like I said, it's gone as far as other promotions from around the world because of this Global Cruiserweight Series being acknowledged because of their existence. Heck, you have a partnership between Evolve and WWE, Triple H and Gabe Spokowski because of NXT. So, again, for some of you that say that NXT is becoming TNA or it's becoming NXTNA, you're wrong. All NXT has done is kick down a door that has been long needed to be kicked down and burned and kept open. So that's all I'm going to say on it, folks. You let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like, and I'm out.